Alerting our body, our consciousness that something different is happening. We're quieting our minds. We're inviting our beautiful, beautiful beings to go into the stillness. All of our to-do list will still be there for us later on. Right now, at the top of the list, let's take a few moments, breathe. Take a few moments to rest the mind so that we can feel the interior of ourselves. What Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. Charles Fillmore called the silence. This is the place that the great mystics, the great prophets talked about. We let ourselves feel the one presence within us. When Jesus said, I and the Father are one, this is the place he was talking about. We are one with the one presence. We allow that breath to move through us. Like a river of healing light. That river of life moving through every cell, every atom of our being. The cells rejoice when we remember our oneness with the one presence. Our cells rejoice when we remember our oneness with all life, with one another. I invite us all right now to consider that all across this globe, every day, and certainly right now in this moment, our human family gathers together in churches and synagogues, temples and mosques, mountain places and valleys, drum circles, dancing, singing, gathering together to celebrate life, community, to celebrate the one presence that expresses through us in billions of different ways. We take a deep breath and we go into a few moments of silence, and we allow our hearts and our minds to feel our oneness with all life, all peoples, the four-legged, the two-legged, the winged ones, the minerals, the oceans, the rivers. We feel our oneness. Into this silence, into this healing space. If you would like to speak the names out loud of those for whom you're praying, please do that now.
Diane, Coleman, Lori,
Susan Rose,
David,
all those who've written in for prayer, Jody Beth and her daughters, we give thanks for the power of prayer. From our place of knowing our own wholeness, we can see wholeness of all those beloveds for whom we're praying, for our whole human family, amidst all the issues and circumstances and world events. We know that wholeness is who we are. We know that light is who we are. We give thanks for remembering this. And we say, so it is, and solely let it be. Namaste. And we let there be light. Everybody say, let there be light. Oh, we are so powerful. Watch that happen. Yay.
yeah.
There you are. So we're talking today about the interior castle. How many Catholics do we have among? Practicing or former or future? We don't know. This is a book right out of the Catholic tradition, and I'm sure you know it by heart. I was a good Catholic. It's a book that I cut my spiritual teeth on. I wasn't raised Catholic. I was a good Southern Baptist when I read it. In secret. I wanted you to know today where you are. That's where you are. In a world where there's so many opinions, how many of you have heard at least one opinion this week? How many of you have given at least one opinion this week? So we have lots of opinions on the way things should be, the way things could be, the way things are, and the way things we want them to be. We have lots of opinions. And we're in that wonderful season now where we're going to be hearing more and more opinions on many things. So it's good for me, maybe for you too, to remember that out beyond all those ideas and opinions, out beyond all those debates of who ought to be doing what or not doing what, there's a field. Out beyond all the ideas of right and wrong, Rumi said, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And so what we just did in our moment of silence, we were in that field where we relax our opinions. We relax our ideas of what's happening that should be happening or shouldn't be happening. And we let ourselves experience the one presence, because I've got a secret to share with you. There will come a moment when all the opinions don't mean a thing. And it will be the field from which we've come, the field that we're actually in right now, whether we realize it or not. It's the field, the one presence. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven. That's where we've come from. That's who we really are. And that's where our consciousness is when we leave this body. This is my perspective, and I have life experience that seems to back it up. That consciousness continues, it continues beyond our opinions. That's the consciousness I, for one, want to spend more time in. Even when we're having all of our debates and discussions on the way things ought to be. I want to keep in contact with, feel my oneness with this field. Otherwise, I forget who I am. I know all of you know who you are, but on occasion, I forget who I am. So I know you're holding me in prayer. So this is where we are. So I don't know if there's a lot of opinions floating around out there. I have a feeling that the one presence is waiting for us to drop our opinions and get in more to what we know. So that's going to require something of us. Shall we continue? Yes. Oh, sure. What else have we got to do? Okay. So The Interior Castle is a book that was written a long time ago by a woman named Teresa of Avila. She was a Spanish mystic, Roman Catholic saint. Now, Unity doesn't have saints, but we could. We're all saints. Thank you. She was a reformer, she was an author, and a theologian of contemplative prayer. We talk a lot here about contemplative prayer. And this was her opinion. She said, contemplative prayer, in my opinion, is nothing else than a close sharing between friends. Isn't that beautiful? Contemplative prayer, a close sharing between friends. It means taking time frequently to be alone with God, who we know loves us. So to put that into unity languaging, that we take time frequently to feel the one presence, to feel our oneness with all of life, with that one presence with one another. We spend time with ourselves, getting to know ourselves. You know that when we talked last week about compassion, I did a little reading which the words were, it's easier for us to love our animals, our partners, our jobs, chocolate. It's easier for us to love all those things than it is to love ourselves. And so part of the reason we seek the interior castle, or part of the reason we seek the kingdom of God, part of the reason we seek that place of silence is to know and love ourselves. Because here's the formula. We cannot truly love one another unless we're loving ourselves. And so there's part of our lifetime work. Here's the way Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said it. In our prayer time, we should have only one purpose: to attain conscious oneness with God. Because prayer is communion between God and humankind. This communion takes place in the innermost part of our being. Now, the way this is written, you can see it both ways. Sometimes it sounds like God is outside of us, doesn't it? And we want to be close to that presence that's outside of us. But we all know the secret, which is that presence is within us and all around us. And we have many names for this presence. So God is a name that a lot of us still use. Spirit. What other names do we have for this one presence? Source. Universe. What? Power. Higher power. Love. Light. Life. Atman. Thank you. Allah. Yahweh. See how many names there are for this one presence. So why would we want to spend time with that one presence? You know, why would we want to spend time with any of our beloveds? You know, I would be so happy to sit down and have catfish and grits with my mom and dad right now. But they don't have a physical address anymore. So I do my communion with them in another way. But just like we want to have time in the presence of our beloveds, we want to have time with the presence of the beloved within. If we don't, we forget who we are. If we don't, we forget what we're made of. Oh, and here's this one other thing. The innermost part of our being. What do you call that place, the innermost part of our being? Soul. Soul, spirit, the innermost part of our being. I have begun to refer to this innermost part of our being as pure awareness. You know, I've had a few experiences in my life of this pure awareness. And a few months ago, I had an experience that I had not had before. And I woke up one morning and I literally did not know anything except pure awareness. I don't know how long it took. It may have been just a matter of a millisecond, but it seemed like it took 30, 40 seconds. I don't know, because in that pure awareness, there's no time. But when I woke up, I realized it must be like a baby experiences opening its eyes and becoming aware for the first time. I didn't know my name. I didn't know where I was. Now I want to tell you, I was not afraid. There was no fear. It didn't even occur to me that I should be concerned. It didn't even occur to me that this was unusual. I was simply in pure awareness, and more correctly, I was pure awareness. I did not have a name. I did not know the place where I was. And then gradually it began to occur to me. This body has a name, Margaret. This body, Margaret, is in a place called Polly's Island in South Carolina. And I began to realize I had been far, far away during the night, doing something. I began to put the pieces together, but far, far away. And I want to tell you, there was no fear. In this place of pure awareness, there is no fear. Not about what's happening to the body, not about what's happening to the memory, not about what's happening around me. I only felt pure awareness, and it was absolutely perfect. And the reason I share this with you is that in my perspective, that's who we are. And we really have to reel ourselves in sometime to stay connected with the name, the body, the address, the email address, postal address. But who we truly are is pure awareness. And we can access that place of no fear by going within more often to spend time with this pure awareness. From the interior castle, Teresa of Avila, who was quite an outspoken gal, evidently, she writes this: "The soul seems to me to be like a castle made of a single diamond or a very clear crystal in which there are many rooms, just as in heaven there are many mansions. It is a great shame not to know who we are in these terms. We become like a person who has no idea who he is, who his father and mother are. From what country he came. We seldom consider what it means to be created in the image and likeness of God, because all our interest is centered in the rough setting of the diamond and in the outer wall of the castle, that is to say, in these bodies of ours. Don't we spend a lot of time concerned about the body? These last 4 weeks when I've experienced bronchitis, I've had a lot of time to think about this body, right? This castle contains many mansions above, below, at each side, and in the center and midst of them all is the chiefest mansion, where the most secret things pass between God and the soul." So this is where we want to spend more time, in this place where the secret things pass between God and the soul. Let us enter the castle. But how can we enter it? Since we ourselves are the castle, we must remember that there are many ways of being in a place. We enter within ourselves. Unless we find peace in our own home, meaning the interior of who we are, unless we find peace in our own home, we shall not find it in the homes of others. It is absurd to think we can enter the kingdom of heaven without first entering into the castle of our own souls. She goes on to talk about how much time and effort is given over to determining whether or not we're going to heaven. I know, being raised Southern Baptist and then Pentecostal, that was usually every Sunday sermon. Whether or not we were going to heaven or somewhere else. Every sermon. What if we're designed to enter into the kingdom of heaven every moment, every moment, every moment, right here, right now? What if that's true? And if it's true, why aren't we doing it more? Why do we seek after things to be more lovely and wonderful and then exempt entering into the beautiful and the wonderful more often, the place within our own soul? It's often the last place people go to look for God. Isn't that funny? I mean, we'll go to churches, we'll go to synagogues, we'll go to mosques, we'll go to temples to look for God. And where is the one presence?
Inside.
Hiding inside.
How many of us will do anything to keep from spending time alone with ourselves? Just asking some questions. Because people often say to me, how can I feel closer to God? Spend time with God, going into your own interior place of silence, of peace, the kingdom. So, St. Teresa said, nothing disturb you. Let nothing make you afraid. All things are passing. Can you think of anything that's not passing? As much as I take care of my granny's antique desk, I know one day it's probably not going to exist anymore. Everything's passing. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing make you afraid. All things are passing. God alone never changes. The one presence. Patience gains all things. If you have God, you will want for nothing. God alone suffices. Sounds like a great prescription to me for happier days. So, Dan sent me a Facebook message a few nights ago. He said, "You've got to see this documentary." And so I've now watched it twice. The name of it is He Named Me Malala. Have any of you seen it besides Dan and me? Oh my goodness, y'all. If you want to be inspired by a current moment, Teresa Bavia. If you want to be inspired by a current moment, outspoken young woman who is fearless, this is a great documentary. Here's her teaching for this day. I don't want revenge on the Taliban. I want education for sons and daughters of the Taliban. Now, that to me is a consciousness right out of the interior of her soul. Now she has a family who has taught her well. She has a family who's taught her to think and to feel. But this consciousness, this is not something she's memorized to say to the news people who are constantly surrounding her when she does her speaking engagements. This is something that she's gotten from the interior aspect of who she really is. How many of us could say this? Anyone who has ever hurt us or betrayed us or treated us without kindness, hasn't there been just a little millisecond of wanting to fight back and maybe have some revenge? She was shot in the face. Her brain was swollen from the bullet that went into it. They didn't know if she'd ever speak or walk again. And here she is, this brilliant presence. And one of the people in the documentary said, well, aren't you angry with the Taliban? They asked her father this too. Aren't you angry at the Taliban for shooting you? And she and her father both said the same thing. They said it wasn't the Taliban that shot us. It was an ideology. It was an ideology that tried to kill her. We all have ideologies. There's those opinions again. Ideas of the way we think things should or shouldn't be. And then this 16-year-old now, or 17, she doesn't want revenge. She just wants education for the sons and daughters of those who hurt her. I strive to have that kind of consciousness. Her father said this, I did not clip her wings. I let her be her. And that makes a big difference. Now, what does that have to do with us going into our interior castle, knowing ourselves more fully, expressing spirit more fully in the world? Because some of us, me included, some of us clip the wings of our souls. We stifle the expression of our spirit. We hold down the light. We get afraid, get depressed, get angry. We push down the light. Now there's going to be those times when we take ourselves away into what I call holy hibernation. And that's okay, that's good. It's healing, it's helpful. We want to always be there with the sole purpose, S-O-U-L, of revisiting who we are so that we can express who we are more brightly in the world. clipping the wings of our soul, it means that we're shutting the one presence out of our hearts. Oops. I'm not sure we want to do that. So if you feel like you're clipping the wings of your soul, maybe you want to give that some thought. Maybe you want to spend some more time in the interior of who you are. Malala says this, there's a moment when you have to decide whether to be silent or to stand up and speak what is in your heart, your soul. I have a feeling that in the days ahead, many of us will be guided to speak more and more of what is in the deep heart of us. You know, she started a blog, which was the first place that the Taliban got wind of her and her voice and her message. And the blog was a little bit safer because they couldn't quite tell where it was coming from. But then there came a moment when she made a decision to speak on radio and then in front of the cameras. And she knew as soon as she made that decision that there was going to be a mark on her to be killed. Let's take a deep breath. We have problems in this country. We have issues in this country. This child, her life was threatened just by simply going to school. Amazing to think about. There is a moment, she said, when she had to decide whether to stand or be silent. And she decided to stand. Charles Fillmore says, we all intuitively know that there is something wrong in a world where poverty, suffering, and sorrow prevail. We would not any of us consciously create such a world. Right? So, how do we consciously create the kind of world that we want to see? Well, part of the way we do that is we spend more time in the interior of who we are. I know for some of you, I don't like meditation. I don't like to sit still. Well, you don't have to sit still to do meditation. You don't have to sit still to visit the interior part of yourself. Although I have found that I am less taken away with other things going on in the world if I do give myself over to stillness. But I can also have a great meditation walking on the beach or working in my garden. The point is that we give ourselves over to it. That we give ourselves over to that place more often. And it's one place I can tell you, practice, practice, practice makes it easier, easier, easier. How many of you have found that to be true? Ooh, we are a bunch of practicing people here. Malala also said this, we realize the importance of light when we see the darkness. This life is a sacred life. So, many of us will have our times of darkness. Many of us will have our times of sorrow. And here's the thing. In those times, let us remember the importance of the light. We reach out to other people. Pray for me, hold me in a consciousness of wholeness. We make our phone calls, or we go to our holy books, or we do our chanting, or we do our spiritual practice so that we can ease ourselves into this interior place. So let's take a deep breath. We are still so unfamiliar, it seems, with the hugeness of who we are. We are still so unfamiliar, it seems, with the bright, beautiful light that we are. We are still, it seems, dabbling in these ideas as if they might be true. And so in this moment, I ask you to touch your own heart. Take a deep breath. And in your own quiet place within, make another promise to your soul that you will give yourself over more often, more fully, to this interior place, to allow our souls to instruct us, guide us, and help us to know our oneness with the one. Out of this place comes wisdom, compassion, and the right action for what we're called to do in the world. We give thanks for knowing who we are. And so it is, and so we let it be. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.